we welcome you back to Newsmax now. According to a Guantanamo Bay detainee turned government witness, the CIA used a wider array of torture tactics than initially reported to the United States Senate.
Yeah, Majid Khan's 27-page account is the first publicly released account. CIA officials declined to comment on Khan's allegations of sexual abuse, but they have said they believe Khan repeatedly lied to them during interrogations.
It's a great place to start our roundtable, and we'll welcome in Rabin-Havt joining us today to discuss this issue. He's the host of The Agenda. It also looks like we have Raul joining us today. Raul, great to have you with us, also the CEO of Gladius Consulting. Good to have you both here with us. So let's talk about this a little bit more. There's a controversy, of course, surrounding the closing and the president's wish to close Gitmo. Do these stories help the president's efforts to close Guantanamo Bay? Ari?
Look, I think that effort stalled his first year in office and really never will come to fruition during his time. I do think they continue to provide the same evidence of the problem that's continued, which is the existence of Guantanamo Bay is a stain on our public reputation in the world, and it's something Americans should be really concerned about.
Well, Raul, you look at these allegations here coming from this former Guantanamo Bay hostage, inmate, or whatever you want to call it here. You know, we know that he's a liar, but why should we take anything he has to say with anything but a grain of salt?
Yeah, listen, I think you should take it with a grain of salt. I've actually been to Guantanamo, not once, but twice. And I'm very familiar with the facility down there. I've seen practically every square inch of the detention facility. And I can tell you that these claims of this individual are highly suspect. Number one, because these individuals are not...
Have you intended an interrogation, Raul?
No, I've not intended an interrogation, but I've actually talked with the fellow who did interrogate them, okay? And, I mean, maybe the guy lied to me, but he seemed to me to be someone who was fairly rational and fairly straightforward, not just with myself, but with the rest of the individuals who were visiting. And most of these interrogations were actually filmed. They were done with multiple individuals present. I find it very suspect that these claims of this individual are in fact true. You have to keep in mind that the people that are left right now at Guantanamo are basically the hardcore core members of Al-Qaeda, as most of the fellows that were there before have been released. I mean, when I was there, they had upwards of 400 or 500 people at Guantanamo. I think we're now down to less than 150.
Well, last week, the Obama administration was ordered by the federal court to release Guantanamo force-feeding videos. The Obama administration initially said releasing the videos would be too burdensome and could pose a national security threat. So what do you think, Ari?
Look, I think there's a lot that hasn't been released, and there's a lot that courts have ordered to be released that needs to be released. I think in this case, we have an American justice system, we have a constitution, and when courts order the release of documents, they should be released. Look, our track record over the past 15 years is not very good. Just go back to Abu Ghraib. Look at what happened there. Look at what we did that we as a nation should be embarrassed by. And that gives these charges some level of validity when you look at those charges that turned out to be true.
Well, Raul, when you hear the term burdensome and could pose a national security threat, we know how the Abu Ghraib pictures were used as propaganda in the Middle East. Is this what the Obama administration is talking about? They're concerned about releasing these videos?
That's the case. I think basically the attorneys for these gentlemen are trying to embarrass the United States government. Yes, these individuals are force-fed in order to keep them alive because they basically go on hunger strikes. So what we're trying to do is basically keep them alive. And unfortunately, you know, those videos are not going to be too flattering. I mean, nobody
is
likes
the judge working for the enemies of the United States, Raul, who ordered them to release it?
You know, look, what I think the primary reason these should not be released is because it'll put American troops in danger overseas, okay? You know that this kind of inflammatory video will basically be, you know, used in an inflammatory fashion to basically inspire jihadists to attack our troops in Afghanistan or elsewhere. And I think that's the main reason why they should not be released.
Look, here's my problem. If people are terrorists, if people are evil, if people have ill intent in America against the American people, we have a great system here in the United States for for keeping them locked up for the rest of their lives. We have supermax facilities that are holding some of the most dangerous terrorists in the world, keeping them in cells 23 hours a day with no possibility of escape, etc. We have a prison facility in Guantanamo Bay that is a stain on our reputation, and we shouldn't be doing things that create situations
so
like.
So, Ari, let me ask you. In this country, members of the media can witness executions. You suggest something like that?
What I suggest is, what I'm suggesting is we have supermax facilities. I'm suggesting that if somebody's a terrorist and seeks to do harm in the United States, use the justice system to lock them up there for the rest of their lives and throw away the key. What I'm suggesting is if a judge says you have to release this, in America, we are a system of laws, not of men, and that is the law.
All right, we'll have to leave it there for right now. We'll have both of you back to continue our conversation on the other side of this upcoming commercial break. Ari Rabin-Havt and Raul Mas coming back right after this.
And back for part two of our roundtable. Host of the agenda and former advisor to Senate Minority Leader, Harry Reid, Ari Rabin-Havt. Also joining us at the roundtable, CEO of Gladius Consulting, political and economic analyst Raul Mas. Thanks for staying with us.
Thank you.
We got to let Raul wrap up. Ari had the last word, I think, right? We
lost track. Raul? Ari, do you remember who had the last word?
It's Raul's turn.
All right, nice. What a gentleman. Raul.
Thank you very much, Ari. Listen, I just don't think we should treat these people as common criminals. These are enemy combatants. The large majority of them were picked up on the battlefield. No place or no reason to be on American shores.
But does that justify torture?
Subject to the same protections as a U.S. citizen. I've not seen the evidence that they've been tortured. Bring it on.
The current president has used the term torture, and therefore it's out in the world, and a lot of the world views it as torture. It's an interesting topic, and also we can look at this. We talk about Guantanamo Bay versus the U.S. supermax prison facilities, but there's also a call for a third alternative where you have some sort of military tribunal on U.S. soil, but who knows? We got to leave that topic aside. We can revisit that at another day because we also want to talk about this deal with the Pentagon and these anthrax samples.
Yeah, an Army testing facility, you guys probably heard about this, in Utah mistakenly sent live anthrax samples throughout the U.S. and around the world. Take a listen.
There are 51 laboratories in 17 states, 1 in the District of Columbia, and 3 foreign countries that we believe have received suspect samples. As of this point, there's absolutely nothing to indicate that this would be somebody who is trying to do this deliberately.
All right, important distinction there, and that really wasn't talked about a lot, but the question was asked. Then the question becomes, though, how does this happen? Raul?
Listen, I think there's obviously a huge breakdown in protocols here. Never should live samples of anthrax have been shipped around the country the way they were. And I think, quite frankly, what's also disturbing is the way that it was determined that they were live samples was actually done in error as well. I mean, it just so happened that the person receiving the sample on the other side noticed that there was a living tissue in them. But obviously somebody dropped the ball. There needs to be an investigation, and whoever messed up needs to be brought to account, and new procedures need to be put in place, if necessary, to make sure that we are not sending live samples of anthrax around the country.
Well, you look at the anthrax issue here, this recent one, then you think back also with the Air Force and the nuclear intercontinental ballistic missile issues and all the problems they were having up there with similar, not exactly the same, but you have these very important parts of the U.S. military, and apparently the management is not in place, Ari. Is this a sign that it might be time to rein things in a little bit at the Pentagon?
Look, I think it's a sign that in large bureaucracies, which the military is one, in large corporations, people make major mess-ups. And when they do, they need to be held to account, especially when it's something dangerous like this. I mean, this incident with the anthrax brings me back to, when I was a Capitol Hill staffer way back in 2001, when we still haven't solved who sent those anthrax mailings to the Capitol. Speaking of live anthrax mailings, like we still, that is still an open question. One, when you talk about terrorist attacks on U.S. soil, that was a very scary time for a lot of people who came in contact with anthrax. So we still don't know that answer.
Yeah, that question remains open. You also think about what happened. You think about after 9/11, there was also the scared American media down in South Florida where a photo editor was actually, he died for inhaling anthrax spores.
But I think that's why it's so shocking, is we were so surprised and so alarmed when that happened, and then for this to happen all these years later.
Right.
A year after the smallpox issue with the CDC, I believe, and you talk about, Ari, the bureaucracy. The bigger question, though, I think, Raul, is the complacency that tends to happen even within the Pentagon.
Yeah, look, again, I mean, this should never have happened. You got to feel for that poor FedEx delivery guy who goes to the arsenal every day to sort of pick up his package shipments. You got to wonder what he's been thinking these days. But I mean, it's just a horrible tragedy. I mean, it's something that, that's deadly serious. And I agree with Ivory. I mean, we need to sort of take a look at who was responsible for this, what happened, what broke down, and fix it. Because anthrax, as you well know, I mean, it's a deadly poison. It can kill thousands of people, and we need to make sure this doesn't happen again. But again, people are human beings and commit mistakes. Obviously, there's a huge lapse here. And we need to figure out exactly what happened and make sure it doesn't happen again. All
right, guys, thanks so much for being with us again for another roundtable. Ari Rabin-Havt and Raul Mas. Good to see you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, what is also concerning, Miranda, is the trickle of information that came out. First, it was in 3 places, then 13, now 51.
Yeah, it does make you wonder. First off, you didn't realize it was live, and then now you don't know where it went.
It makes you wonder if they actually do have their arms around the situation at this point. We'll see.
Right.
More coming up here on Newsmax Now. Please do stick around. We'll be back right after this.